Indie games are a relatively new phenomenon. I've always personally considered the birth of gaming as we know it to be on the NES, but take any console from that era or before that you'd like. As big as games were, there were a few problems when it came to development. The main issues were lack of technical power, lack of budget, and lack of technical knowledge. Let me break that down. In the 1980s, as fun as retro games can be, computers, more specifically, personal computers, were a relatively new and expensive thing. As such, the technology was difficult and expensive to develop, and because of this, personal computers cost a good chunk of change. Not only was it hard to get your hands on such technology because of the hurdle that was price, but it was also hard to make good hardware at such a cheap price. Additionally, personal computer hardware, and computer hardware as a whole for that matter, was nowhere as advanced as it is today, and there were generally less enthusiasm surrounding it as such. Because of this, developing indie games was kind of foolish. The install base and enthusiasm for gaming was not large enough to warrant spending a bunch of money and/or free time to develop games. Additionally, video games were not nearly as mainstream in the 80s and even in the 90s as they are today, so the budget for developing games was simply not there. Where could somebody come up with thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to develop a game that they weren't sure had an audience? Lastly, it was much harder to make games in the past. There weren't amazing free resources to learn how to code, and there certainly weren't pre-made free video game engines like Unity and Unreal to code it. Not only does one have to code, but often they have to do the art and the music too. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, this all changed for the better. It was now possible to make and publish indie games. Many people consider the birth of indie games to be on XBL, also known as Xbox Live Arcade. This way, people could publish their games digitally so that they did not have to go through the effort of finding a publisher, manufacturer, and distributor to make and sell their games. Because they did not have to spend so much money on publishing their games, game creators and developers could make smaller scale, bite-sized experiences rather than the typical AAA formula of larger games. Braid is a fantastic example of this. Braid is a puzzle platformer which not only was incredibly uncommon for the time and era, but was also a much simpler gaming experience in terms of graphics and mechanics. This didn't stop Braid from being an amazingly clever game. Braid went on to score a 93 out of 100 on Metacritic, one of the most popular review aggregation websites. What made Braid, nay, what makes indie games so good? The answer is surprisingly simple. Passion is the one and only advantage independent developers have. If one had no passion for the game they were trying to make, and they didn't get paid a salary, why would they have bothered trying to make a game that is most likely going to fail? Let's take my favorite indie game, and one of my favorite games of all times, Bug Fables, and use it as an example. For those who don't know, Bug Fables is a game directly inspired by the first two Paper Mario games. It takes key elements such as the aesthetic and turn-based action-style combat system and applies it to their own game. It is clear to anybody who has played this game that developers love Paper Mario. Each character in Bug Fables has a special ability that they can use outside of combat to help solve puzzles, just like in Paper Mario and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. More importantly, however, the developers of Bug Fables brought Paper Mario's badge system into their game. Badges are like equipable power-ups that all change how the game is played. In some instances, the badges affect how much damage you receive in combat. Others change the difficulty of the game. This is one of the key aspects that made the old Paper Mario games so good. Customizing one's experience helped to tailor the game to your specific desires. Only someone who loved Paper Mario and loved it so much that they wanted to make a new entry in the series would do that. Additionally, the game is packed to the brim with content. There are a lot of side quests, and most of them are really engaging and feel worthwhile, which is a huge plus in my book. I love side quests, and this game fleshes them out really well. According to HowLongToBeat.com, beating the game takes about 25.5 hours, while doing everything plus some of the side content takes approximately 36 hours. My point is, the developers cared enough to polish the game, make it an amazing experience for players, and stuff it full of content. Another example of an indie game that was clearly made with passion is Shovel Knight: Treasure Trove. This is yet another game that takes clear inspiration from an older franchise, but this time it's classic Mega Man. In Shovel Knight, players platform around, utilizing their shovels to dig, but also to platform. Treasure Trove is much easier than the Mega Man games, but the design inspiration is clear. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, for the low price of $40, you get 5 games. 5 complete, separate games. Included are the following campaigns: Shovel Knight, Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, and King Knight. Additionally, there is a built-in fighting game. These campaigns take a combined 35 to 40 hours to beat, and they all play different enough from each other mechanically, as well as having largely new levels to play. What kind of AAA studio would charge you so little for so much? I feel like they would charge $30 to $40 for the base campaign alone and charge a $20 plus fee for each expansion. Instead, Treasure Trove packs all of this into one game for you. It is clear that developers are passionate about their games. They aren't in it for the money. No, they are here to share their games that they built with love and care to the world. Indie devs make their games for themselves first and foremost, then for others, and lastly, for profit. This is in stark contrast to AAA games. Some AAA studios do make amazing games that are packed with content. In recent memory, there has been The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Elden Ring, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Spider-Man 2. I could go on, but you get the point. The fact of the matter is that most AAA games are just recycled garbage. Take Call of Duty, for example. I know this is a cheap and easy target, but Call of Duty is literally the same game with minor tweaks each year. This isn't to say that the games can't be fun, but there is a lack of passion behind these products, which often makes the experiences lackluster. Another great example released this year, that being Starfield. Many people enjoy Starfield, and it received good critical reviews, but at the end of the day, it's just not what it promised. It was supposed to be this massive open-world Bethesda RPG, like the all-time greats of Fallout, New Vegas, and Skyrim. Spoiler, it wasn't. Like every Bethesda game at launch, it was a buggy mess. But it was the gameplay where, as fun as they promised, this wouldn't be as big of an issue. Complaints many had about the game are as follows. There are too many planets to explore, traveling to other planets is no fun, fast travel is nearly required, most planets are barren wastelands, and the game feels more like a shooter than an RPG. Like I said, many people did end up enjoying this game, but most people felt that they were cheated out of the experience they were promised. I will admit, this game probably did have some passionate developers behind it, but when your boss is Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world, passion is not more important than profit. Another example of profit over passion would be Cyberpunk 2077. At launch, this game was absolutely awful. The game was so buggy and filled with so many problems that it was basically unplayable. Your choices in this open world RPG were basically meaningless, and so many features that were promised either didn't show up in the game or were technically there, but in ways that advertising had made seem different. CD Projekt made so much money off of this game. The game had a relatively long development cycle, and had its delay launched, and it still came out trash. The game was so successful, in fact, that the game eventually had a massive expansion released in 2023, in addition to confirmation of a sequel. Again, passion, passion, passion. A passionate game developer who prioritizes good games over profit would never, ever do something like this. I want to be clear that this isn't the game developer's fault. It's the fault of the CEOs of the world. The developers are just doing their jobs, and if that's how they make ends meet, so be it. It doesn't excuse the greed and lack of care on CD Projekt's end, however. If you can't tell, I really love indie games. Indie games tend to be more compact, linear experiences, both of which I typically appreciate in games. I hope we soon get to a place where indie games push larger developers to act in certain ways, and this has happened to a degree. For example, Stardew Valley inspired leagues of larger AAA farming sims. But at the end of the day, it's the little guys versus the big guys, and the big guys tend to win those fights. But that may not be true forever. Thank you all so much for watching. This video is a bit shorter than my other ones, so please let me know if you like this kind of length better or worse in a video. No judgment either way. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, a comment, and consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, see you later.